And it's like a different kind of relationship with God than I had even now in my story in 2008. I always loved him. He was always my refuge, my provider. But I think the level of relationship and even my understanding of his character, it's so much more deeper now.
Hey, everybody, it's me, Julieann Hartman with The Journey, and we have episode number 2 with Stacey Dicks, and she is dealing, at this point in the story, she's dealing with the fibromyalgia diagnosis, a lot like mine, and we just compared some notes on some things that was told to me as well. And so anyway, we're going to jump right back into it, and because it's pretty much, close. She now has gone to a mold specialist in Maine, I think you said. So take it
Maryland.
from there, Stacey.
Yep.
Maryland. Okay. Take
Maryland,
it from
yes.
there.
Yep,
All
we're
right.
living in Maryland. And I wonder if you've heard of this specialty center in your own journey, Julieann. Next, I found the Fibromyalgia and Fatigue Centers of America. And I thought, oh, what a name. They have to know everything about this diagnosis, right? This condition. They're definitely going to fix me. So I remember getting like urine testing done for toxic metals and so many different tests to no avail, despite, trying different things that they recommended. So that was another thing that I crossed off the list that I tried. And then my mom took me to Johns Hopkins Hospital, well-known, renowned medical center in the US. And I had all kinds of testing done. It was just inconclusive. Couldn't find anything. I looked pretty healthy, not bad. Couldn't explain all the symptoms. So, as you can imagine, and probably your story too, you just feel like, okay, well, what's next? Like, what do I try next? Because I always had this thought, this belief that there's a reason I'm sick. It's not just like, oh, it came out of the blue and nobody knows, and it's this mystery that's going to go on forever. I always thought, no, there is a reason. So if there's a reason, then it can be fixed. And I just had in my mind, I'm going to keep looking until I find the thing. So
I have a question though. How are you physically dealing with life every day? And I know we've skipped around. We've gone from
yeah,
San Diego to Maryland. Like, how are you feeling during this time physically?
not good. When it first happened, I remember when we were in California, like, even though I was working at the time, I spent like all day on the couch because I had no energy. I couldn't do anything. They held my job for me for like 2 months. And then I remember it was around the holidays when I talked to my boss over the phone, and she's like, "Do you think you're coming back?" And I said, "No, not coming back." So I had to officially quit the job I had recently gotten when we moved out to San Diego. And then from there, the fatigue was the worst. Like, I just always felt like I was trying to move around like with like really big, heavy weighted blankets on me. Like I could just barely move. I'd get up after sleeping and felt like I never even slept. Like it was just this constant, would not lift fatigue. And that was super frustrating to me, not only besides not feeling well. Nobody wants to feel like that. But I'd always been active. I'd always been into exercising and working out. And it was just a big part of my life and what I enjoyed. And so it just felt like even more was taken from me because what I loved so much, I really couldn't do anymore. So even back in California, I remember just resting like all day, taking naps, resting, and I would wait for my husband to come home. And regardless of how exhausted I was, I would say, we got to take a walk. We got to take a walk. Let's get the dog. We got to walk. I felt like I couldn't do it, but I made myself because I also knew movement is good. Like I'm not going to give this up. And I wasn't out at the gym or lifting heavy weights, but I wasn't willing to, as bad as I felt, I was like, I have to try to walk, I have to move my body. It's like the only joy I still felt. So, yeah, symptoms were raging still, and they would also kind of go up and down in intensity. I don't remember if that happened with you, but some months were better, still not good, not great. And some months were just horrible. Like I just felt like I couldn't even navigate the day, like keep going. So uh, after Maryland, we moved to Florida for a short time because my husband had to do some training. I think it was in Jacksonville. Of course, I saw another specialist there, like an osteopath, and more allergy testing, hormones. Let's test your neurotransmitters. What's going on at night? Are those things working correctly to bring you the right sleep? And I just remember all these supplements like DHEA and GABA and all this to fix my sleep and my neurotransmitters. And yeah, lots of money spent and no better.
It's so you're saying all these, I forgot about 'em.
Yeah.
I remember I'd be like, this has to work. I'd look at it like, this has to work. Whatever you are, I'll just take it and hopefully it works. And oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially with it was funny. We went to this one doctor one time, actually in Florida. We flew all the way there. I'm like, this is my answer. I know he's got my answer, and he was more like excited to work with my husband because while I was there, he put him on this machine that he put me on. Well, mine was bad, but his was so good. He's like, I've never seen anybody in such great health before. And I was like, "Wait, what about me? Wait,
Yeah.
I came here for me, and you're telling me how great a shape he's in, but that's wonderful, and I'm so happy. But what about me?" Was like, "Oh yeah, well, it's the fibromyalgia thing, and yeah, but he couldn't help me either."
Oh, that's so, and you get your hopes up, right? I just
You
remember going
do,
journey so many times. I'd be like, I would think this is it. And I know, every time I talk to my husband, okay, yes, I know this is expensive. I know, but I'd be like,
yeah,
I've got to get better. I'm worth it. I've got to get better. I've got to get my life back. This is the thing. And I can't remember how many times I thought that and I said that. And I convinced my husband, we got to do this. This is going to
yeah,
help over and over and over again.
yeah. And you know what? I had little kids too.
Oh gosh, I can't imagine at the same time having
Yeah.
to keep
So
up as
actually, what was great about it was a good distraction.
yes.
Because I would think about me 24/7, but I'd have a few hours of the day where I wouldn't because I had to think of my kids and
Yeah.
what they needed and all that stuff. So that was actually more of a blessing than anything. That I just couldn't self-indulge. I would the minute I drop them off at school, but and then I'd pick it back up again. But yeah, they actually were a good way to distract me from that. So, okay, so now you're doing like you're just finding that next one, the next one, the next one that's going to bring, obviously healing to you. What's
Yeah.
going on with you spiritually all this time? Are you going to church? Or do you have a relationship with Jesus, like an intimate one, not just knowing about him, but having are you having conversations with him?
Yeah. Despite us moving like every year and a half on average with the military, with my husband being in the Navy, we always found a church, got connected to a church, tried to go as much as possible. You know, Looking back, I had a relationship with God, absolutely. But I just see it even now, like how different it is and how much more evolved, if you will, how much more changed and grown, how much more I've grown in that relationship. Gosh, over the past few years, even since finding healing journeys today and meeting you all like 4 or 5 years ago. And that's like a different kind of relationship with God than I had even now in my story in 2008. I always loved him. He was always my refuge, my provider. But I think the level of relationship and even my understanding of his character, it's so much more deeper now, over the past 4 to 5 years since I found biblical healing information and really dove more into getting to know him on a deeper level. So it's interesting to
Okay.
look back and see that growth.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because as much as you're, you know, in your closet or whatever going, "Oh God," but it's not drawing you closer to him. It's
Right.
just it's you just screaming in front of him and saying, "You got to do something. Help me. What's going on?" And that was my turning point was when I
Yeah.
started with Andrew Womack and he said, "You already have everything that you need." And I was like, "Okay, now I'm on a mission to figure out what do I already have
Yeah.
that I don't have to go chase after anymore." And so that's when literally the shift happened in my brain and in my heart. So okay, so now you're still going to all these doctors, nobody's able to help you. And so where are you at now in your walk? And what year is this now?
Yeah. So now it's about 2008, and we've moved to Washington State for my husband's military assignment. I remember living in Washington was a time where I had so many GI issues at that time and got connected with a gastroenterologist I really liked. And some of the tests they did, besides like those expensive GI and stool tests, all those alternative tests, but I had testing done, spirometry, crazy name, pulmonary function test to see how my lungs and my stomach and everything was it working properly and functioning optimal. They suggested I had asthma at that point. I'd never had any kind of issue like that. And I remember going home with different inhalers. I'm like, this is new. Like, I've never had asthma, any breathing problems whatsoever. So it's just like things were just added on to what I was already dealing with. And in the midst of all that in 2008, praise God, got married to my husband in August. And I just say it was definitely God's plan because when we met, I was healthy. My husband met this fun, outgoing, active young lady. We fell in love, we got engaged, and then boom, soon after that, a few months after that, I got sick. So our engagement was actually, we got engaged in 2004, didn't get married till 2008. People are like, you were engaged for 4 years, but was fighting diagnoses and medical issues. Not to mention, my husband and I were then both dealing with emotions and feelings of, I'm thinking, I'm not the woman that he, signed on, it got engaged to, thought he was going to go through life with, right? And I know he had the same thoughts. We've talked about it openly and the fear around that, right? Just even fear of, oh my gosh, well, maybe should we not be together? Should we not get married? And I keep saying it's a God thing because we did. We got married. I think we are both like, if we're going to do this, we need to do this and stop just being engaged forever. Um, and my husband has shared with me his first wife had some health issues, and he, their marriage didn't last because him being in the military, she decided like not very far in, 6 months, a year in, that she didn't want to move around. and she just decided she never wanted to leave where she lived. So obviously, with a military lifestyle, you can't. It doesn't. A relationship doesn't survive like that. But his first wife had some health issues too. And my husband has shared with me, he's like, when that happened with you, he's like, I just didn't want to give up. I don't know if I gave up too soon on my previous wife's health issues. And he's like, I wanted to hang in there as long as possible.
Wow, that's really awesome though. I mean, because usually that would make somebody run, but he
Yeah.
wanted to he ran to you instead of from you.
Yeah. Yeah. But God, right? So incredibly grateful. Um, so going on into that year a little further, because we got married in August 2008. And even though this is going to sound so crazy to people, even though I'm dealing with symptoms, I've been sick since 2003, good 5 to 6 years. I told you I've always been active. I've always loved working out and living an active lifestyle. I've always been interested in nutrition. And so, despite lots of symptoms and sensations and diagnoses, I decided to become certified as a personal trainer and a fitness instructor. And I found such joy and passion and purpose in that because, like, I could go work for an hour and, like, do like a low key class like abs or something. I could teach that. Or I could go personal train somebody for an hour. But then, I'd be home resting, right? After that. But it was still, it gave me like purpose and passion. And I could get connected to people through a gym and have a little bit of a social life, talk to people, even though I still had so many symptoms. I know it might sound crazy, but for me, it just kind of helped light me up and keep me going forward.
No, I think that's awesome. Yes, it's just funny because it is a physical fitness job.
Right, right.
It's a physical job, not just like being on
Yeah.
the phone.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I was like, this might sound crazy. So, and I still am. Many years later, I've carried on that fitness passion and never let it go. But
Did
I
you
just
know
think,
that I also was a fitness instructor?
oh, I think I heard that in one of your, I do
Yeah.
remember
Well,
that.
I've been with yeah, I do remember Billy Blanks, Tybo.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so I started with him in 1990.
Oh my
And
God.
guess what? We worked out again last night. Like we've been together since 1990.
Oh
Meaning
my God.
like being together as far as him being our fitness instructor. My husband and I, we do a weight class on Monday nights. That's why
That's so
I'm a
cool.
little sore this morning because it was a tough one last night.
That is,
Anyway,
oh
but
my
yeah. So
God.
I worked under him for years. I was a Taekwondo instructor and I also was a personal trainer. And you know what? I'm sure this happened to you too. I learned a lot about people, their emotions, in their body expression and
Mhm.
all that. And so I would always go to the Lord and say, okay, I see that with them. Am I doing this? Right?
Yeah. Yeah, you
Is
do.
this
You
what's
get
defeating me every day?
Yeah, you get to know people when you're working with them one on one and training them, and they tell you things, and you just start to become close to people. And that was good for me to have that kind of outlet. Um, because, like you mentioned with your kids and being distracted, that was a time when, okay, well, I'm going to go do this job. And therefore, I'm focusing on this thing that gives me purpose and joy. I'm not sitting at home looking at myself and researching
Right.
and wondering how to help myself next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now let's continue. So now you are the a fitness instructor. You're doing like 1 hour a day. And then now what's going on with you physically?
Yeah, so I still had a lot of, so we were in Washington, still had a lot of GI stuff going on. I remember the gastroenterologist I saw ran so many tests, tubes down, every which way, all kinds of tests that didn't show anything. and they diagnosed me with functional dyspepsia, which is a fancy name for saying we don't know why you're having pain. Functional dyspepsia. And at one point, Julianne, all I ate was oatmeal. And I think that went on for a few months because it's the only food I felt like that didn't make me sick or not feel well. And it's just a nightmare. So,
Yeah, isn't it crazy how we'll just search and find that one thing and then be afraid to eat something else? My God, what bondage. I totally relate to all of this, Stacey. And I relate so much that we have to stop because we're out of time already. So we're going to continue again on the next episode, but please track with us. If you have not watched the first episode, go back and watch it so that you know where we're at in her story. So thank you so much for watching. And also, please share these videos because, fibromyalgia, Lyme disease, all this stuff is like, I think Lyme disease is the new fibromyalgia name, right? It's the new trend. And so watch these because you're going to find that, you know, it wasn't the medication that helped us. It was the power of the Holy Spirit that changed everything. So come back and watch, and we'll see you all later.